Welcome to the veterans of the Cedar Valley. Today we are going to be visiting the Grout Museum, and I have with me two of the staff members from the Grout Museum, Chris Shackelford and Arian Dawson. Am I correct on that?
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, and tell me about what you folks do at Grout.
Well, I am the curator of exhibits, so I work pretty closely with Chris, who can tell you a little bit about his job in a minute. But so I focus on putting together content and design of the temporary exhibits, as well as kind of inputting any updates on the permanent structures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I am the historical content developer and program developer at the Grout Museum District. I assist the curator in all her needs as she's putting together temporary exhibits within our museum, as well as develop content within permanent upgrades to the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum. Additionally, I contribute in the education department in putting together adult-oriented programs to bring people to the museum.
That's good. Well, your program that you're going to be kicking off very soon in July, and it kind of dear and to my heart because it's the Korean War, and I was there. So, and when I went through some of your visuals, I noticed a hill that I was on. So thank you. But anyway. Let's start out by telling our viewers what you have planned as far as the Korean War is concerned this July.
So starting this July, we have a temporary exhibit opening up about Iowan soldiers in the Korean War. We are kind of focusing on a troop story to kind of part of this is to, of course, thank the vets, but also to kind of give people the perspective of what the experience was like being in Korea at that time. And then this is kind of also sort of a large kickoff to an upgrade to our permanent Korea exhibit over at the Sullivan Brothers Museum.
Yes, and how you've had that permanent Korean War display for some time.
Yes, since 2008, the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum opened an expansion upon the Grout Museum District. And to piggyback on what Aaron just said, we really want it to be a veterans focus. I say to our guests when I'm giving tours, we're not a war museum, we're a veterans museum. We're in the business of telling people stories. And so it is very important to get stories such as yours, Sid, as well as other community members of Cedar Falls, Waterloo, and the greater Cedar Valley, hearing their recollections, their memories of serving in Korea. Something we've been doing for many years at the Grout Museum District is collecting interviews, and we have hundreds of interviews of not just Korean veterans from all eras, whether they served overseas or domestically, and tapping those resources and hearing those stories and telling those stories in exhibit form is our ultimate goal.
Right, and that and I remember when you started that, the lady who was doing that, I can't remember her name right now. But anyway, I used to line up veterans for those interviews, and that was fun, and I know the veterans really appreciated it. It was a good feature in your display.
Something really interesting about those interviews, I think, is the true value, I believe, is a generation or two away. We're all mortal human beings, and it'd be really interesting for our grandkids, our great-grandkids, to be able to hear their stories. That's something previous generations didn't have access to, and I think it's a very noble and worthy cause to collect as many stories as we can.
Right, right. I know Bob Niemeyer right now is working on families of Korean vets who are deceased. And that's very good. Very good. I think that's the right direction to go because, you know, kids do like to tell their parents' stories or their grandparents or whatever. So, thank you for doing that.
You bet.
And let's talk about the Korean show this year, your program?
Sure, it's entitled Cold War Ablaze, Iowans and the Korean War. It'll be occupying around a 1,500 square feet exhibit gallery hall. We have many artifacts acquired throughout the community, as well as tapping into our own collection. Utilizing several photographs provided to us by the community and veterans themselves, as well as many public domain photographs from the Library of Congress and of sort. A lot of that planning is kind of on Aaron's end as well, the floor plan of how it's going to be laid out, but we plan to provide a large context to the war, and again, I re-emphasize the stories of veterans.
Yeah, I think we're going to really start out kind of getting into what exactly happened in the Korean War to kind of get that out of the way, to give people a reference, because they don't really, you know, for some people it's been a while since we studied this in high school, you know, we're not all history majors, so we kind of want to give you that frame of reference so that you really do understand, like when we go into somebody's experience at Chosin or somebody's or Incheon or even Old Baldy, like what exactly that meant to the larger scheme, but also kind of how that works in relation to that veteran.
Right. Yeah. You know, it was called the Forgotten War,
Right.
and it really was. I remember the day I came home, and I was the only one standing on the dock. You know, nobody greeted us, and hardly anyone talked about it. Oh, you're home. Good, you can go to work. You know, that kind of thing. And so I'm happy that you're bringing it back, and so people can see, and our young people can see it today.
Well, I think it has such a large ramification even on today's general politics and general geopolitical scenarios that are playing out each and every day in our headlines. North and South Korea are, you know, very instrumental in the way that the world works, the East versus the West. The Cold War is over in many people's minds, but the ramifications of that conflict and what it means to the way countries interact with one another is very important. And we're going to be trying to tell that story. Furthermore, your reference of being at the Forgotten War, it's very, very close to the end of World War II. And the scars of Vietnam, it really got sandwiched between two polarizing events in this country of extreme patriotism and general disregard for American politics at the end of the Vietnam War. And there's a lot of pride and patriotism that we see amongst our Korean veterans population that we really hope comes out. And it's a humble patriotism where you say you came back and went back to work. And it seems there wasn't much complaint about it, as it was a different generation. You did your part and you came home. There's tremendous sacrifices and intense fighting lasting internal and physical scars. And we hope to be able to portray that in the most humble way possible.
Oh, good. Well, very good. We have just a minute left on this segment, and time does go fast on this. And but when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about what, how you collected material and your displays, and how they're, what's going to be available to people who come, and how people can access that. So we'll be back right after this word.
From the world wars to Korea, Vietnam, to the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq, they saw what few others ever saw. But many veterans don't talk about their experiences. It may be because you've never asked. Learn what you can't always find in the history books. Interview a U.S. veteran in your community and submit their audio or video interview to the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. Or share their stories by contributing their original photos, letters, or military documents. Participate so that future generations may hear directly from those who served and better understand the realities of war. Download a field kit from our website and find out how you can play a role in preserving history.
We all know that the Cedar Valley is a great place to live and work. And there are many individuals and organizations that are doing their part to improve the quality of life for everyone that calls this their home. On Serving the Valley, we sit down with these service organizations to learn more about different projects and events that need your support. We all need to do our part to help out our community. Tune into Serving the Valley to learn more.
Welcome back. My guest today is Chris Shackelford and Arian Dawson from the Grout Museum. In this next session, I'd like for you to talk about the displays, what you're going to be showing, and when people come and visit the museum, what kinds of things will they be able to see?
Well, a lot of the collection that we've pulled together from not only our collection, but also communal donations, where people are lending us stuff to display, are really focused on the gear and the uniform and things that soldiers would have had with them in Korea or while training to go to Korea, anything in the journey, like to and from. We actually have one gentleman who lent us some of the souvenirs that he brought back, so we have a chance to kind of look at everything that would have been encountered over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he was lucky because they wouldn't let me bring back anything, so it must have been my behavior. But anyway, yeah. You know, that is an issue that I hear a lot about from veterans' families who have deceased veterans. Mm-hmm. That, you know, what do we do with this material? I don't want to throw it away.
Yeah, and we do take in communal collections quite often. When trying to get it into our permanent collection, it is always an option, since we do look to expand and house and preserve our local history, which includes the veterans who served. We do have I wouldn't call it a very lengthy process for permanent donation, but you would bring in the object you would be considering for donation, and we would end up running through our collections committee, which would decide how and when. And the basic premise of anything that we consider is that it has to have an Iowan tie. So it has to be a soldier who served in Iowa or came back and lived in Iowa, or we're very much focused on our local, state, and Cedar Valley roots.
Yeah, and that's important because that's the kind of question you get, you know. And when you're out there visiting with deceased families. And anyway, what's going to be on display in the one coming up?
So in June, we open a World War I Centennial exhibit within our Grout Museum, History and Science Museum. And in July, we open this Korean War exhibit. So we'll have two military-focused exhibits within our temporary galleries throughout the fall and winter of 2017. And throughout the spring, the Korean War exhibit remains up. And so it goes from July to July 2017 to 2018.
So it'd be a full year then.
Exactly.
All right.
And
so I think some of the highlights that we've gotten so far, I mean, in terms of weaponry, we did actually have a mortar come in on loan, a flamethrower, some of the larger weapons. We also have complete cold gear sets to kind of demonstrate, what the guys in Chosin would have been wearing. We're trying to think, abundance of mess kits. It's a lot of every day.
Sure.
But you also have a loaning procedure, don't you?
Yes.
That people can loan.
Yes, if
Talk about that a little bit, because that's another way that families, can
So for temporary
help.
loans, which can work either way, like if the person wants to show off or to have their family collection appreciated, but don't feel quite like they want to part with it just yet, you would actually come to me, and we would work out kind of the loan period. There's a whole form to fill out. Basically, that gives us custody of it for the year, and then when it's time to return it, you would get it back. So and for collections like the current exhibit for Korea, and actually for World War I, we've gotten a few people who will come in and offer us things that if we want to get it out right away, we'll most likely do a temporary loan and then decide together between the donor and the institution whether or not we want to take it to the next step and put it into our permanent collection or not.
Well, that'll be helpful to me, because if we, I personally get questions about that kind of process, and it's good to know that.
Being in the late stage of planning for this Korea War exhibit, we have many space allocated prior to what we have taken in, but we're never sure what's that item we never even thought of. So unique items are encouraged to come through the door. Furthermore, we're still looking for a flight suit. Is that
Yes.
You're looking for what?
a flight
flight
suit,
suit.
an Air
Oh,
Force
flight
flight
suit.
suit, would be awfully interesting, because we do have representations of each branch's military uniforms. They're not entirely correlated. They do kind of have different representations for different periods and appropriate attire. Furthermore, I'm always interested in photographs. Many veterans have photographs they took overseas or while they were in the service, and something about being able to look through the lens or the eye, the literal Iowa perspective as they viewed the world around them, I think is an extremely important addition. Yes, I can always use National Archives Records Association photographs that are sometimes extremely iconic and maybe be the best way to tell a story, but again, if I can acquire a photograph that can be substituted from an Iowan, from a Waterloo, Cedar Falls native, I would do that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, these that are being shown right now are very real. They are real, and so it's very good. I mean, it's very good that you're doing that. We have maybe 2 or 3 minutes left for the show, but what are some of the things you'd like to say to our viewers about the grant? How about the price of coming?
Well, I believe there's no admission or any special charges for the Korean War exhibit. I believe it's a standard. Adults are $10.
Okay, that question has come up, and that's why I brought it up.
Veterans are 5, and
And
I believe
children are.
children are 5 as well. Now, something I did want to bring up really quick, if we only have a few minutes left, is something we are doing and we're really excited about, is we're trying to collect a photograph of all the Iowans who were killed in Korea. And now this is a project we're kind of working backwards from. We did Iraq, we did Afghanistan, we did Vietnam. We're moving into Korea. And unlike those previous conflicts I just mentioned, there's no place in the United States where you'd be able to see these photographs all in one place. And we've had amazing community participation from across the state, from Council Bluffs, Sioux City, to right here in the Cedar Valley. And I have 395 of the 567 Iowans that were killed in the Korean War.
Really?
And I'm still actively searching out those. Furthermore, we'll add a little bit of interpretation for each one, talk about them as a human being, more than just a soldier, what their interests were, where they went to high school, if they played sports, etc. And if you know your family member died in Korea, I would love to hear from you if I haven't already. Acquire a little information from you, hopefully a photograph, and just reach out to me at the museum.
Because I'll get the word out. You know, we have 2 Korean War chapters in Iowa.
Yeah.
The Taylor Morris chapter, and also the can't remember the one, but there's another one. We will get that out to you, and get that word out, because I know there are some there that.
Yeah, and our visitors will be able to explore this in the temporary exhibit first, and then it will then move over to the permanent exhibit. So this is something that will be able to be used for
Yeah.
quite some time.
By the way, that's Tall Corn chapter of the Korean
Yep.
Festival. And that's good to know. We can help you with that, I'm sure. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close? We're down to the end. Time goes fast.
Well, I really hope people come out this summer and see this exhibit. I hope they come out to the museum throughout the year, and there's a lot to see. And an immediate reaction of friends of mine who have never been to the museum, who've come for the first time, they're shocked at how much stuff there is to see. It's hard to go through it in an 8-hour day, and so there's always something new to see. And that's part of Aaron and I's job, to rotate exhibits so it's new and exciting each and every visit.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful museum, and thank you for recognizing and remembering veterans. That's very important.
Well, I think I speak for both of us, and we really thank you for first having us on the show, and thank you for helping us plan this exhibit, Sid, as you serve on our committee.
Well, the Veterans of the Cedar Valley is, you're always available. I mean, you're always welcome to be here. If you have programs of any kind. I'm sure that Denny Bowman will not reject that at all. But thank you very much for being here today, and let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.